Hiruzen was born the son of Sasuke Sarutobi. The Sarutobi clan was one of the first clans to settle in the newly created Konoha, where Hiruzen struck up a friendship with the Shimura clan's Dansum Shimura. Hiruzen was part of the first generation of ninja produced by Konoha, and he, Homura Mitokado, and Koharu Utatane were placed under the tutelage of Tobirama Senju. Hiruzen early on displayed prodigious talent in the ninja arts, earning him additional training from Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage. At the same time, Dansum became jealous of Hiruzen's skills and started a one-sided rivalry in an effort to surpass him. During the First Shinobi World War, Tobirama, by that time the Second Hokage, led a team consisting of Hiruzen, Homura, Koharu, Dansum, Kagami Uchiha, and Torifu Akimichi. During a mission they started to be pursued by Kumogakure's Kinkaku force, an enemy that somebody would need to distract and inevitably die at the hands of in order for the rest of the team to escape. Hiruzen volunteered to be the decoy, boasting that, as the strongest of their group, he stood the best chance of surviving the encounter. Nevertheless, he asked Dansum to look after the others. Tobirama volunteered himself instead, and before going to his death he appointed Hiruzen as Third Hokage. In the Anime, Hiruzen permitted Dansum to create Root, a more ruthless subdivision of the Anbu under Dansum's exclusive control, shortly after he became Hokage, in order to balance the shortcomings of his empathetic rule. For years he had ignored Root's questionable foreign ops, its abduction of children, and the actions it took against Konoha personnel, Hiruzen included. At some point, Hiruzen married Biwako, and they had a son, Asuma, and at least one other child who became an Anbu. Hiruzen also started leading his own team of new academy graduates consisting of Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade.11. Although he was close with all of his students, Hiruzen had the highest hopes for Orochimaru, a genius like himself, who, after the deaths of his parents, was only further motivated to have a deep impact on the world. Hiruzen led Konoha's forces through the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars. In the Anime, his choosing to end the Third Shinobi World War by signing a peace treaty with Iwagakure despite the losses Konoha suffered incensed Dansum, prompting Hiruzen to step down as Hokage against the village's protests. Hiruzen had long hoped that Orochimaru would succeed him as Hokage, but, despite his best efforts, he could never convince him of the will of fire, that Konoha was a family, that the Hokage had to risk everything to keep safe. Unable to choose Orochimaru, Hiruzen considered Jiraiya as his successor, but Jiraiya did not believe he was responsible enough. Hiruzen ultimately settled on Jiraiya's former student, Minato Namikaze, who had proven himself time and again during the Third Shinobi World War. Hiruzen assisted Minato with the transition of power by advising him on how to handle individuals and other village matters. He even retained some of his own Anbu, several of which he assigned as security while Kushina Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, gave birth. Despite their precautions, the Nine Tails escaped and attacked the village. Hiruzen led the village's defense until Minato arrived to remove the Nine Tails to a safe distance. Hiruzen followed and, cut off by the adamantine sealing chains, could only watch as Minato and Kushina gave their lives to seal the Nine Tails into their newborn son, Naruto. Minato did not have time to tell Hiruzen how the Nine Tails had escaped, instead using the final moments of his life to ask Konoha, via Hiruzen, to think of Naruto as a hero who saved the village and not the container of the monster that killed so many. Hiruzen did so, but the villagers proved unable to follow Minato's wishes, prompting Hiruzen, now the village's Hokage once more, to outlaw any mention of the Nine Tails, an effort to protect Naruto from their misguided hate. He also gave Naruto his mother's surname in order to hide his relation to Minato from Minato's enemies. Hiruzen eventually started investigating a number of disappearances throughout Konoha. In the Anime, he followed a lead provided by Kakashi Haddock, which ultimately led him to discover that Orochimaru was behind it all. Hiruzen was dismayed not only by Orochimaru's role or that he was experimenting on those he kidnapped, but also his reasons to create an eternal youth and immortality technique. He attempted to apprehend Orochimaru, but could not bring himself to strike down his favorite student and allowed him to escape. From examining what Orochimaru left behind, a young boy imbued with Hashirama Senju's wood release was discovered, and over the years the boy became one of Hiruzen's top Anbu operatives. In the Anime, the boy was previously discovered by Dansum, and Hiruzen negotiated the boy's release into Hiruzen's care. Because Minato never had the opportunity to explain the cause of the Nine Tails attack, Konoha's leadership came to suspect a member of the Uchiha clan was responsible due to the Sharingan's ability to control the Nine Tails. The Uchiha resented this suspicion and began planning a coup d'etat, something reported to Hiruzen and the Konoha Council by Itachi Uchiha. Hiruzen attempted to peacefully resolve the conflict, but negotiations consistently stalled. Dansum eventually stepped in without Hiruzen's knowledge and ordered Itachi to slaughter the Uchiha. Hiruzen only learned of the mission afterwards, when Itachi reported its successful completion. Before needing to publicly leave the village as a criminal, in order to hide Konoha's involvement in the Uchiha's destruction, Itachi asked Hiruzen to look after his younger brother, Sasuke, the only Uchiha he could not bring himself to kill. Hiruzen agreed. In the anime, Hiruzen also promised not to change the village barrier's formula, enabling Itachi to sneak in from time to watch Sasuke from afar. Dansum's role in the Uchiha's assassination was not something Hiruzen could abide, and as such he ordered Root be disbanded. About 5 years after the Nine-Tails Fox's attack on the village, Hiruzen had a disagreement with his son Asuma, leading to the latter to leave to pursue his personal interests. Hiruzen was a natural prodigy, hailed as a god of shinobi. His talents made him Hokage at a young age, directly selected by the Second Hokage, having surpassed his teacher in childhood. He was the strongest shinobi produced from his clan, as well as the most powerful of Kage during his lifetime, and once well considered the strongest Hokage in history. While his battle prowess deteriorated greatly in old age and ultimately died, he was able to fend off Orochimaru along with the combined might of the reincarnated First and Second Hokage, ultimately sealing away the two past Hokage and Orochimaru's hands. Orochimaru openly believed that had Hiruzen been 10 years younger, he would have killed his former student. In the anime, Hiruzen was said to have immense chakra, and even in his old age, his chakra was strong enough to crack stone upon molding it. His reserves diminished in later years as even splitting his chakra between any more than 2 shadow clones was a great risk for him. His reduced chakra levels were offset with precise chakra control, needing only the minimum amount of chakra to use techniques to their full potency. Despite his old age, his reaction time and sensory perception were still good enough to defend himself, even when robbed of his sight. Hiruzen could even lay explosive tags on high-level opponents without them noticing.